All right.
All right, we're live. We're live. Okay, so this is Talking Tactics Extra. Shout out to all the people out there, um, new Patreons, old Patrons, people who are probably gonna subscribe. Like I don't know, 3 years from now or whatever. Shout out to you guys. So yeah, continuing our video series. I'm sure you guys have already like read the title and seen the video, but Kwaku, he sent us a suggestion. I was like, ooh, that could be interesting. This video is an hour long. What we're going to do is we're going to split it up into two parts. So we're going to do 30 minutes or so this week, and next week we'll finish it. That way we can keep the file a bit small and save some of your guys' time. And that way we can kind of pause it and discuss what's going on, and you'll get your 40 minutes, I'm sure. So we're going to go from this is a brief chronology of 1990s heavyweight boxing. So we're going to go from 1990 up until 1995, and then next week we'll take 96 through 1999, presumably. So, yeah, have hope. Again, you're at the controls. If you want to pause it, rewind some knockouts, whatever. Do you? What's the name of this guy's channel?
Rummy's Corner.
Rummy's Corner. All right. If it's good, I'll subscribe. So.
Well, he has 1.4 thousand dislikes. So. All right. So should we look? Should we write? Let's write.
Yeah. Press play, man.
This is Rummy's Corner.
That's why he has dislikes, bro. That is a terrible intro. That is horrendous, man. The year of my birth.
Of 1989, these were the top-rated heavyweights according to Ring Magazine. There are 10 names on the list, but for most boxing fans, only one name mattered, the one at the top. Mike Tyson was the baddest man on the planet. At just 23 years old, he was the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, having successfully unified the titles of all three major sanctioning bodies. Tyson utilized an explosive style and devastating knockout power to capture the imagination of the
Can we pause it?
His dominance from the late 80s was expected.
All right.
Have you seen that he's back? Like the whole...
Oh, I mean, look, because
I'm back.
I still think that may probably be like a promotional thing.
Evander Holyfield said he's back. So are they going to do like a third fight? We'll see.
Why? When did Holyfield say he's back?
Like recently.
Oh.
Within the past week, I think. Like at the end of his video, he was like, "I'm back."
Yeah, so, but it could be like a promotional thing. Like I'll believe it when I see him in the ring.
I don't want to see two 50-year-olds fighting. Let's just keep it real. But just him watching Mike here, I was just like, "Oh yeah, I remember the training videos."
I just got watching an amazing Tyson interview with this UFC fighter Francis Ngannou. Really great. No. Tyson is the guy psychologically is operating a whole different level, man.
All right, let's get it.
Expected to continue well into the 90s. The first heavyweight matchup of interest in the 90s was billed as the Preacher and the Puncher, a bout that took place between former world champion George Foreman and former world title challenger Jerry Cooney. Both fighters had been on the comeback trail, and neither was expected to make any serious noise. But when they squared off against each other, the boxing world took notice. Foreman stopped Cooney in the second round, dropping him once just before finishing him off with a powerful short left hook. It was a victory that brought a lot of positive attention to Big George's comeback efforts. When undisputed heavyweight champion Mike Tyson defended his titles against Buster Douglas, it was expected to be nothing more than a mere formality in the lead up to a highly anticipated showdown between Tyson and Evander Holyfield. But instead of the early knockout for Tyson,
this uppercut is mean, bro.
We got what was to this day arguably the biggest upset in the history of professional sports. A perfect storm scenario involving the death of Buster Douglas's mother and an overconfident Mike Tyson, paved the way for the odds-defying performance from Douglas.
I think if he hadn't gone for the mouthpiece, he might have gotten up, man. But he was
mouthpiece as he was being counted out, remains one of the most.
Look at him. He spent 2 seconds trying to get the mouthpiece
on film. Buster Douglas.
But he'd have been knocked out anyway.
The new undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. 4 months after losing to Douglas, Mike Tyson made his return to the ring when he faced Henry Tillman in a match billed as The Road Back. This card also featured Big George Foreman on the undercard. Foreman stopped Jose Adelson Rodriguez in the second round of their fight to continue his winning streak on the comeback trail. And in the main event, Tyson made quick work of Tillman. He stopped him towards the end of the first round with a big right hand, and Tyson showed the boxing world he still had the ferocious power to be a force in the heavyweight division. A lot of people still viewed Tyson as the best heavyweight in the world, believing that he simply had an off night against Douglas.
And then
the heavyweight champion Buster Douglas took on challenger Evander Real Deal Holyfield. It was immediately obvious that Douglas wasn't as physically fit or mentally prepared as he'd been 9 months earlier when he shocked the world against Mike Tyson. Holyfield, on the other hand, appeared to be extremely well prepared physically, and he quickly proved that he was also extremely well prepared mentally. Holyfield stopped Douglas in round 3 with a beautifully timed counter right hand. Evander Holyfield had just become the new undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. He made boxing history by becoming the first boxer to ever unify all the major titles.
He went for that uppercut again and messed up.
Heavyweight division.
Pause it.
Rocky V was released.
Rocky V. Have you seen the documentary? It's called Chasing Tyson. It's ESPN 30 for 30. If you're into boxing, watch it. It's about Evander Holyfield and about how even though he beat Buster Douglas and he was like the champion, he never got to fight Mike in his prime because Don King and all these kinds of people who were in Mike's ear and his ear just trying to make sure that, the fight was as big as it could be. If Mike beat Buster Douglas, like the dude said, they would have fought, but Mike lost. So then he had to fight Buster Douglas. People didn't really count that as like you beat somebody. Mm-hmm. And then what obviously happened, he'll probably get into it, but then Mike had the criminal charges, the rape charge. So then they never really fought when they were supposed to. And then Mike, I don't want to ruin this doc, but it's a really good documentary looking at Evander Holyfield and kind of the mentality that he had to have.
No, because like Tyson was really mentally on point when he fought Holyfield, based on just everything that he had already sort of dealt with. Basically, ideally, we should have had Tyson Holyfield after Tyson beats Douglas. That would have been the ideal fight.
That was to happen. Because the fight we just saw, that was supposed to be Mike Tyson, but it never happened when it was supposed to. And then obviously we'll get into the I'm sure next week we'll get into what happened between those two. But Rocky V. All right.
In theaters on November 16th, 1990. It was by far the worst film in the Rocky franchise. The character
Is that true?
Gunn was portrayed by real-life up-and-coming prospect Tommy Morrison, who received widespread attention in the boxing community for his role in the film. The last notable fight of 1990 was the contest between Iron Mike Tyson and Alex Stewart. It was billed as the hard way back, but it wound up being an easy night's work for Iron Mike. Tyson dropped Stewart 3 times in the first round, prompting a halt to the bout with the 3 knockdown rule in effect. With the victory, Tyson had secured back-to-back first-round knockouts following his stunning loss at the hands of Buster Douglas. At the conclusion of 1990, these were the top-rated heavyweights according to Ring magazine. Evander Holyfield was the reigning, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, but many observers still believed that Mike Tyson was the best in the division. Billed as the fight of the year, the first significant heavyweight bout in 1991 was between top-rated contenders Mike Tyson and Razor Ruddock. It wound up being a fiercely competitive matchup with both boxers landing some really nice power shots. The fight was ultimately stopped towards the end of round 7 following a big combination from Tyson, which prompted referee Richard Steele to call the contest, despite the fact Ruddock had remained on his feet. So the fight concluded on a somewhat controversial note, and most observers felt that Tyson and Ruddock had unfinished business. Undisputed heavyweight champion Evander Holyfield defended his titles against former world champion George Foreman in a fight billed as the Battle of the Ages. Many onlookers believed that the 42-year-old Foreman was simply too old and that he didn't belong in the ring with a young champion like Evander. Foreman ultimately proved that he did belong, making a pretty good account of himself in a losing effort. Holyfield had made the first successful defense of his titles, and Foreman proved that even at his advanced age, he still had what it took to compete at the highest level. Mike Tyson
threw like 13 hooks.
would meet again in a fight billed as the rematch. They were looking to settle unfinished business following the controversial stoppage in their first meeting, and they were also fighting for the right to face undisputed heavyweight champion Evander Holyfield. It was another hard-fought bout between Tyson and Ruddock, and this time there was no controversy. The fight went the distance, and Tyson won a unanimous decision on the scorecards. So it looked as if the highly anticipated showdown between Holyfield and Tyson would finally happen.
Ooh.
A bit later than expected. Compliments of
Mike is so nice, bro.
On July
If
26th,
he just gave a shit.
Desiree Washington filed a complaint accusing Mike Tyson of rape. A matchup featuring two undefeated up-and-coming heavyweights, Ray Mercer and Tommy Morrison, was billed as Test of Courage. And that proved to be a fitting name for this classic encounter. Morrison started the fight off strong and he looked good early. But in the 5th round, Mercer stopped Morrison with one of the most fierce and vicious knockout combinations
That shit is
the
rude.
sport has ever captured on film. It was an absolutely brutal assault. Mercer lived up to his merciless moniker as he launched one big bomb after
Caught in
another.
the ropes and he just kept throwing, man. The ref should have stopped this.
Mercer's menacing display of power made big waves on the heavyweight scene. November 8th, 1991 was the date that Mike Tyson was supposed to challenge Evander Holyfield for the undisputed heavyweight championship. But Tyson had to pull out of the fight a few weeks before it was scheduled due to a rib injury. With Tyson on the shelf for a rib injury, Holyfield needed an opponent, and his original replacement was Francesco Damiani, but he suffered a foot injury just days before the fight, so as a last-minute replacement, Holyfield wound up defending his crown against Burt Cooper. Cooper put forth a surprisingly spirited effort, and he actually gave the champion a good run for his money. But Holyfield ended matters in the 7th when he fired off a lengthy combination which prompted referee Mills Lane to call a halt to the contest. At the conclusion of 1991, these were the top-rated heavyweights according to Ring Magazine. Evander Holyfield was still the reigning undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Fans were eager to see a mega bout between Holyfield and former champion Mike Tyson.
So, do you remember any of this? Like, because obviously you're slightly older than me. So, like, at what point do you start
very
boxing?
like, because for me, like, I was way more into wrestling, like the WWF and football. But really, no, WWF was what I was really more into during this time. Like, this was like the heights of the WWF. So just because Tyson was so famous, we every time there was a Tyson fight, it was like a boom. So I just noticed in residuals.
So, like, when did you first really start paying attention? Like late 90s, maybe?
Yeah, probably mid-ish, late 90s.
Okay.
think for some reason I never watched. I knew of the Holyfield Tyson fights, but I never watched the fights. I pretty much watched all of Tyson's fights because that was the biggest. Oh my gosh, will Tyson beat this guy in the first round? But for some reason, I don't know why. I think I was maybe in transit between Nigeria and Switzerland and going through some stuff. So the boxing was like the furthest thing from my mind when I was just going through some stuff.
All right. So we're at 91.
Yep.
I'm seeing Lennox. He's got a feature later.
Tyson. But Tyson's looming rape trial left things a little uncertain. Billed as the last stand, undefeated contender Ray Mercer squared off against former heavyweight world champion Larry Holmes. The winner of this fight was slated to get a crack at undisputed champion Evander Holyfield. Holmes was once again on the comeback trail after having already twice retired previously, and most observers weren't expecting much from the former champion against Mercer. But the Eastern Assassin turned back the clock, and he used every trick he knew to outcraft, outsmart, and outbox his much younger opponent. Holmes was awarded a unanimous decision victory, and all of a sudden, Larry found himself right back in the thick of things. On March 26, 1992, former heavyweight champion Mike Tyson received a 6-year prison sentence, which he began serving in April of that year. Undisputed heavyweight champion Evander Holyfield defended the championship when he took on former world champion Larry Holmes.
You see how everybody he's fighting is like an old dude? So he fought Foreman, he fought Holmes.
And
Douglas was like a
older challenger en route to a unanimous decision victory. It was the third time
he never got his respect.
defended the undisputed championship. And for Holmes, it was his third unsuccessful bid to regain the title since he suffered his first professional loss at the hands of Michael.
I think Holyfield's fought Riddick Bowe once or twice.
Billed as the right for the fight.
Remember the dude that had the helicopter?
Contender Lennox Lewis in a WBC title eliminator that was the first matchup in a 4-man tournament.
Like Will Smith a little bit.
This bout was slated to get a crack at the winner of the upcoming title fight between Evander Holyfield and undefeated challenger Riddick Bowe. Entering this 4-man tournament, Riddick was widely viewed as the favorite to win. This largely stemmed from his 2 performances against the now incarcerated Iron Mike Tyson. But despite expectations, Riddick was no match for Lewis. Lewis put on a magnificent display of power, dropping Riddick 3 times inside of 2 rounds.
Damn, those body shots.
Prompting referee Joe Cortez to wave the fight off. Lewis made a huge statement and officially earned himself a crack at the title against the winner of Holyfield Bowe, which was now just 2 short weeks away. In an instant classic, in a fight that would ultimately be viewed as one of the best heavyweight title fights in the rich history of boxing, Riddick Bowe captured the undisputed heavyweight championship when he defeated Evander Holyfield by unanimous decision in an absolute battle for the ages. It was a tremendous back and forth action fight with a lot of dramatic shifts in momentum. The epic round is famously regarded as one of the greatest rounds of action ever. It was a brave and gutsy effort from both fighters and a real crowd pleaser for boxing fans around the world. Riddick Bowe had just become the new undisputed heavyweight champion of the world.
Is that a white dude with a kufi?
About a month after becoming the undisputed champion, Lennox Lewis were unable to reach an agreement. Bowe vacated the WBC title, literally throwing the title belt into a trash can. On December 14th, 1992, the WBC declared that Lennox Lewis was their new heavyweight champion.
Damn, he won it without fighting.
Conclusion of 1992, these were the top-rated heavyweights according to Ring Magazine. Riddick Bowe was the reigning unified WBA IBF champion, and he was widely regarded as the best in the division.
I guess Bo didn't want to fight Lewis as his mandatory
champion, even though he did not win that title inside the ring.
Probably money, as it always is with boxing.
Bricks.
Merciless Ray Mercer was featured on the undercard of a heavyweight championship bout between unified WBA IBF champion
in a lot of these
and
episodes,
former titleist Michael Dokes. Mercer had what was expected to be.
I always confused him with Ron Mercer, who was like a Chicago Bull, I think.
The plan was to set the stage for a big showdown between Bo and Mercer later that year. But the Boogeyman had other plans, and he was able to control most of the fight and was awarded a unanimous decision victory in a huge upset. There were allegations that Mercer had attempted to offer a mid-fight bribe to the Boogeyman to take a dive. Mercer was charged and ultimately acquitted of bribery charges the following year. Meanwhile, Riddick Bowe took care of business in impressive fashion as he battered Dokes in a total mismatch, stopping so huge by technical first round. Lewis
he was out the ring and he was just like, nah.
WBC title when he took on former titleist Tony Tucker. In a match billed as Star Spangled Glory, Lewis dropped Tucker twice en route to a unanimous decision victory.
Oh, damn.
It was a good performance.
I think Lewis is my favorite from this era, man.
Lewis had never won a title inside the ring.
Just as his fights are very boring,
living in the shadow of the universally recognized champion, Riddick.
Like, I think every fight he lost, he
billed as the heavyweight debate. Unified WBA IBF heavyweight champion Riddick Bowe took on Jesse the Boogeyman Ferguson. This one was expected to be a one-sided mismatch, and that is exactly what it turned out to be. The only reason Ferguson even received the opportunity was because he had already derailed plans for Bowe to face Ray Mercer. The Boogeyman was no match for Big Daddy Bowe. The reigning heavyweight champion made quick work of Ferguson,
stopping
him to end the first and finishing him off not long into the second.
Hey, yo, I'm not coming out for the second if that's how I end the first, man.
Regarded challengers. Former heavyweight world champion George Foreman and Tommy Morrison would square off against one another in a bout billed as Star Spangled Battle, which was totally lacking in originality, given the fact that the bout between Lennox Lewis and Tony Tucker just a few months earlier was called Star Spangled Glory. Morrison abandoned his typically aggressive style, instead deciding to stick, move, and box against his older, slower opponent. The strategy worked, and Morrison was awarded a unanimous decision victory against Big George. WBC heavyweight champion Lennox Lewis took on fellow British boxer Frank Bruno, who in the lead up to the bout described the champion as being, quote, not British, noting that Lewis had fought under the Canadian banner at the Olympics Games. This led to some heightened tensions that manifested during the bout where both fighters put forth a spirited effort. In round 7, Lewis staggered Bruno with a big left hand, which led to a flurry of unanswered shots that ultimately led to Bruno's demise. It was the second successful defense of the WBC belt for Lewis.
Frank Bruno had too much heart for his own good, man. He never went down, but he always got beat.
Deep in the shadow of Riddick, Big Daddy Bowe. The highly anticipated rematch between unified WBA IBF heavyweight.
I think this is the one with the helicopter.
Bowe and former undisputed champion Evander Holyfield took place almost exactly 1 year after their first encounter, and it was fittingly billed as Repeat or Revenge. Holyfield teamed up with trainer Emmanuel Stewart for the rematch, and this time around, instead of trying to fight fire with fire, Holyfield played to his own strengths more as he attempted to outbox the bigger champion. This fight
Crunk Jim, man,
known for the incident involving the
so many legends.
Sandman. which caused a 21-minute delay.
This guy, the fan man.
It was a close and competitive affair, and when the judges' final scorecards were read, Holyfield would narrowly edge Bo out by a razor-thin majority decision. Evander Holyfield had just become the new unified WBA IBF heavyweight champion of the world, making him a two-time champion. Meanwhile, trainer Emmanuel Stewart began what would become an impressive run of success in heavyweight championship contests. At the conclusion of 1993, these were the top-rated heavyweights according to Ring Magazine. Evander Holyfield was the reigning unified WBA champion, and he was widely regarded as the best.
I didn't know about Big Paul because of Big Paul.
Lennox Lewis was the reigning WBC champion. When unified WBA IBF champion Evander Holyfield went up against Michael Moore, he was facing his mandatory challenger for both sanctioning bodies. Holyfield and Moore battled it out in a competitive affair, and the judges ultimately scored the bout as a majority decision victory for the challenger. Holyfield was hospitalized after the bout.
I think Foreman knocks out Moore, if I'm not mistaken.
Retired 5 days later. Although his retirement would be short-lived, Holyfield and Moore battled it out in a competitive affair, and the judges ultimately scored the bout as a majority decision victory for the challenger. Holyfield was hospitalized after the bout and diagnosed with a heart condition.
Jesus.
He retired 5 days later, although his retirement would be short-lived as the result of a misdiagnosis. Meanwhile, Michael Moore had just become the new unified IBF heavy.
The story about Evander was the official story is he was misdiagnosed with the heart condition. His story is he had the heart condition. He went, the Benny Hinn crusade thing, like the preacher dude.
No.
Open a new tab and go to Benny Hinn, dog.
What's this?
Benny Hinn.
I'll put it on my phone.
Yeah, Benny Hinn, man. Just type in Benny. Well, I kind of wanted the people to see Benny Hinn, but
yeah, because I've done this via like tab, so
got you. Oh well.
Who is Benny Hinn?
He's like can you share my screen?
I think so.
All right. Let me look up Benny Hinn, dog.
He's an Israeli televangelist, best known for his regular miracle crusades. Albums. He's got albums?
He's got albums. Benny Hinn. Okay. I'm just looking through the YouTube videos, man. I'm trying to find like the videos, man. It'd be funny, man. Boom. Here we go. I got it. All right. Got you. Okay. Can you see me?
Okay.
All right, you got it?
Yeah.
All right. So this dude, this is obviously a woman, right? But the dude in the white suit right here, this is Benny Hinn, right? And what he does is he has these miracle crusades where if there's anything wrong with you, you go on stage and he kind of prays for you, right? And like people fall down in the Holy Spirit and they give these testimonies. And like everybody's like under the power of the Holy Ghost and stuff. So the story with Evander Holyfield is that he went to a Benny Hinn crusade and was healed by the power of the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit. And that's his story about how he was healed. So in his mind, he had the heart problem. He went to Benny Hinn. Benny Hinn, through the power of God, healed him, and then he returned to boxing. But if you listen to the scientists, it was just a misdiagnosis.
Also, that's Holyfield's story.
Yeah. Which is interesting.
No comments, man. No comments.
Yo, have you seen the ones where like the preacher takes off his jacket and he's just like,
Yeah.
and the whole crowd is just
It's hilarious. It's like a superhero movie, man.
well, yeah, that's Benny Hinn, bro. You know what?
Champion of the world. He made boxing
I'll tell it later.
by becoming the first ever southpaw to become heavyweight champion.
Wow.
WBC heavyweight champion Lennox Lewis made the third successful defense of his title with a dominant performance against Phil Jackson.
So Phil used to be black.
Lewis dropped Jackson 3 times, the last of which resulted from a tremendous combination, prompting referee Arthur Mercanti Sr. to call a halt to the contest. With the victory, it appeared that Lennox Lewis was finally beginning to emerge from the shadows of Riddick Bowe and the now retired Evander Holyfield. In June, Lewis and Bowe had finally agreed to terms for a bout that was anticipated to take place the following year in either March or April. That summer, Bowe had his first bout since dropping his titles to Holyfield. His opponent was Buster Mathis Jr. In the 4th round, Mathis dropped to one knee, and Bowe proceeded to land a big right hand while he was down. Mathis couldn't continue, and the bout was ultimately ruled a no contest by referee Arthur Mercanti Sr. When Oliver McCall challenged Lennox Lewis for the WBC title, most observers weren't giving the Emmanuel Stewart-trained challenger much of a chance.
It's an L.
This was expected to be nothing more than a tune-up bout for Lewis in the lead-up to his highly anticipated showdown against Riddick Bowe. In the 2nd round, Lewis attempted to throw a right hand, which McCall countered with a crisply timed right hand of his own that dropped the champion. Lewis beat the count and rose to his feet on very unsteady legs. He looked extremely wobbly, and the referee decided he had seen enough and called a halt to the match.
Damn.
It was over. Oliver McCall had just become the new WBC champion.
See how he celebrated, man.
Lewis beat the count and rose to his feet on very unsteady legs. He looked extremely wobbly, and the referee decided he had seen enough and called a halt to the match. It was over. Oliver McCall had just become the new WBC heavyweight champion of the world. In a bout billed as one for the ages, unified WBA IBF champion Michael Moore took on former world champion George Foreman. Throughout most of the contest, the 26-year-old was able to easily control the action against his 45-year-old challenger. In round 10, Foreman started finding the mark with his right hand before ultimately delivering the big right hand that would make boxing history when he dropped his younger foe for the 10 count. At 45 years old, Foreman had become the oldest fighter to ever win a world heavyweight title. This historic win would start a chain reaction of events that would soon lead to a state of disarray in the heavyweight landscape. Against all the odds, George Foreman had just become the new unified WBA IBF heavyweight champion.
That's that old man strength,
becoming
man.
a 2-time champion in the process.
Look how big his arms are, still at 45.
Conference for a fight between former undisputed heavyweight champion Riddick Bowe and undefeated challenger Larry Donald.
Oh my
damn!
Would exchange words before Bowe suddenly struck Donald with a 2-punch combination.
You fucking the money up, bro.
Wasn't nearly as explosive. The former champion outclassed
Riddick Bowe was a mess, man.
This decision victory. At the conclusion of 1994, these were the top-rated heavyweights according to Ring Magazine.
Riddick Bowe has thrown a belt in the trash can. He's hit somebody in a press conference,
Oliver McCall
and he's hit somebody on their knees already. What is wrong with this guy? He's just fucking up the money. Is number 8
sudden rise
Nigerian? No.
The division was seen as a wide-open playing field. Adding to the uncertainty and making things even more interesting was the fact that former undisputed world champion Mike Tyson was expected to be released from prison sometime soon.
This is our last year for this episode.
Early in the year,
Make
George
it a good one.
was stripped of the WBA version of the heavyweight title. The WBA title was then up for grabs when Bruce Seldon defeated Tony Tucker for the vacant strap. That fight was part of a doubleheader.
I wonder how many of these dudes were on steroids, man.
Out in the main event,
Most of them.
when WBC heavyweight champion Oliver McCall made the first successful defense of his belt when he defeated former longtime champion Larry Holmes by a close but unanimous decision.
Larry Holmes was on his Muhammad Ali, man. He was always in the ropes.
IBF champion George Foreman took on virtually unknown challenger Axel Schultz. On this night, the 46-year-old champion really started showing his age. Schultz fought a smart fight and was able to trouble Foreman with his movement and quickness.
Nah, man.
The winner by 2 of the 3 judges, with the 3rd judge scoring the bout a draw, rendering a majority decision victory for the champion. This was a highly controversial decision where many people felt Schultz deserved the nod. Given the controversial nature of the outcome, the IBF ordered an immediate rematch to take place. Foreman would instead relinquish his claim on the IBF belt, rendering it vacant. Former undisputed heavyweight world champion Mike Tyson made his long-awaited return to the squared
This is the
circle
fight I remember watching.
following his prison sentence
Yeah,
when he
this
took
one I
on
remember
unknown
watching.
journeyman Peter McNeil. This was
Right.
Tyson's first bout as he won his rematch
This
against
dude was so aggressive, bro.
on unknown journeyman Peter McNeil. This was Tyson's first bout as he won his rematch against Razor Ruddock more than 4 years earlier. As expected, Tyson made quick work of McNeely, stopping his overmatched opponent in the first round.
Jesus.
Iron Mike Tyson was officially back. When WBC heavyweight champion Oliver McCall took on perennial contender Frank Bruno, the winner would be contractually obliged to take on Mike Tyson. Bruno used an intelligent jab to set the pace, and he proved to be the busier and stronger fighter on this night. Bruno emerged victorious, winning a comfortable unanimous decision on the scorecards. Frank Bruno had just become the new WBC heavyweight champion of the world. Former WBC champion Lennox Lewis took on Tommy Morrison in a matchup that had been brewing for some time before finally taking place. Lewis dominated Morrison, dropping him 4
Oh,
times.
we got the dreads going now.
The
We got the locks coming.
off in round 6. The following February,
Great jab, man.
Morrison tested positive,
Jab was so good.
effectively ending the referee milling for some time before finally taking place. Lewis dominated Morrison, dropping him 4 times, the last of which prompted referee Mills Lane to wave it off in round 6. The following February, Morrison tested positive for HIV, effectively ending his career in professional boxing. For Lewis, this was his 3rd consecutive victory, all inside the distance since losing his title to Oliver McCall the previous year. In a fight billed as the final chapter, former undisputed heavyweight world champions Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield did battle for the 3rd and final time in the rubber match of what would ultimately be known as one of the greatest trilogies in heavyweight history. This was the only time these two had squared off without any major world titles on the line. The fight was a brutal affair, with a couple of significant shifts in momentum along the way. Holyfield dropped Bowe hard in the 6th round, and Bowe would return the favor in round 8 when he caught an attacking Holyfield with a big right hand.
In the neck.
Holyfield beat the count, but the damage had already been done. Cool as an assassin, Riddick Bowe proceeded to quickly drop Holyfield again, prompting referee Joe Cortez to stop the contest. A month later, Axel Schultz faced Francois Botha for the vacant IBF title. Botha was awarded a split decision victory, but following the fight, he tested positive for a banned substance. His bout with Schultz was then declared a no contest, and the IBF title was once again vacant. To cap off the year, former undisputed heavyweight champion Mike Tyson had his second bout since being released from prison, when he took on Buster Mathis Jr. Tyson dropped Mathis in round 3 after landing a couple of really nice uppercuts. Mathis was unable to beat the count, and Tyson had now scored his second consecutive knockout victory during his comeback. At the conclusion of 1995, these were the top-rated heavyweights according to Ring Magazine.
Mike had 2 fights and he was number 3 already? How?
Frank Bruno was the reigning WBC champion. The IBF title was vacant, and George Foreman still had a rightful claim as the lineal heavyweight champion. Meanwhile, even though he wasn't officially recognized as a world champion by any of the major sanctioning bodies, Riddick Bowe was widely considered the best heavyweight on the planet.
All right. So that's about halfway. Can we look up who Henry Akinwale? What was that guy's name?
Akinwale.
Who is this guy? I've never heard of him. So how do you feel about this documentary style, man? The cool thing about boxing is there's footage for everything. So
is it British? Oh yeah, he's definitely Nigerian. Adetokunbo.
Like, how do you feel about Giannis changing his parents Greekifying their name?
Who?
Giannis.
I mean, it is what it is. Like, what's Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Because it's basically that. It should be that or some version of it.
But because you just never know. Because maybe it's a case of where like Greece did a lot for him.
True.
And Nigeria didn't.
Do you know they weren't citizens of any country for a long time, and then they got good at basketball, and then they got citizenship because that's how it works. Right. So click this guy for me, if you would, please. I've never heard of him. So what's his record? 4 losses, 50 wins, 4 losses, one draw. That's pretty fucking good. Okay, but who did he fight? I'm sure they put him against Lennox.
He lost to Oliver McCall, Lennox Lewis.
Yeah. This Axel Schultz guy, man. Click him. I've never heard of this guy before in my life. He's the one draw. If you go down, yeah, he's the one draw in this guy's career.
Oh,
33 fights, 11 L's. Oh no, 33 fights, 5 L's. Interesting.
Yeah, no, that's actually, it's quite interesting just sort of seeing the background of how.
Do you know what we should do? We should watch, like, I don't know if we'd be able to get away with this. I don't know who has the copyrights to like Muhammad Ali fights and stuff, or Floyd Mayweather fights.
Oh,
we should watch like some Floyd stuff.
It's like it's just watching in one man. I mean, watching Rumble in the Jungle would be pretty cool. I mean, I watched that like maybe like a few years ago.
I like watching Floyd because it's just dominance. It's just pure dominance. This guy looks like somebody. I can't think of him.
I know. He looks like, I think it's an actor.
Yeah.
Or something. He definitely reminds me of someone.
All right. So I could keep going, but you know, I feel like it's fair just to keep it in 30 minutes. So yeah. I'm just reading this guy's page now. I could keep going. All right. So yeah, this has been Talking Tactics Extra. We thank you guys for paying attention. Remember, if you want any suggestions in the next couple of weeks, we'll watch them.
So how many suggestions do you actually have?
We have a few.
suggestions like video stuff or topics?
Yeah. There's more like general things. So I remember somebody said that they wanted us to watch like ice hockey or get your opinions on this and that. So
Nice. Okay.
yeah, there's a few suggestions, but we could always do with some more. So hit us up and we'll do it. So anything you want to say to the people, man?
A wise man once told me, well, a Nigerian dude who I went to school with, that boxing is a sport where a bunch of white people see niggers punch each other out in a ring and then they then applaud. Now I always thought, that's interesting. So whenever I look at boxing, that's so it's just sort of in my mind, and I just look at white people just sort of jumping up and down and just seeing these two blacks like punch and break each other's face. Obviously, like there are white boxers and there are black people, but just that sometimes whenever I just see like two black boxers and most of the crowd is white, and see white guys jump up and down, I'm like, I just recall that statement that guy made to me. So,
how do you feel about boxing generally, though? Like, you like it in terms of like it's one of your favorite sports, or?
I love boxing, but I feel guilty for loving it.
I feel you.
Guys were just punching the hell out of each other, and it's like this is brutal. But I just find it fascinating, and I'm absorbed by it. But I feel guilty by
that they're abusing themselves for your entertainment.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, it's not something I like to like, but it's something I like.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna lie to myself. Like I really enjoy boxing, and I get very. It's like definitely like when Tyson fought Lewis, which we'll probably see. Was that in 2000?
It might have been 2000, 2001, but
that's crushed me because I cared so much. I was so hyped for that because Tyson was like a hero to me. I was so hyped for that fight. So yeah,
I wonder, is there a documentary on like the Bruno Lewis dynamic about how they used Frank Bruno as like do you know how kind of what they do with Anthony Joshua, where they drape him in the British flag and he's always in the Union Jack and he's like he's really British in that way. They try to keep him polished that way. I'm sure whenever like who's that one dude? What's the Hearn? Was
very easily manipulated, So
who's the Hearn dude? You know who I'm talking about? Say again.
Tommy Hearn.
Tommy, is that his name?
Yeah, Tommy Hearn, like very brutal boxer.
No. He's like the boxing promoter.
Eddie Hearn.
Eddie Hearn. I'm sure whenever Joshua starts talking about, a goosey soup and pounded yam, and he's like, no, fish and chips, bro. Fish and chips. Blood pudding. Whatever the fuck they eat, man. A goosey soup. No. Fish and chips, bro. Because like he's ruining the thing, man, whenever he brings up his Nigerian heritage.
Well, he's what he is, man. He's Nigerian. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, man. All right. So yeah, 50 minutes. That's good. We will see you guys next week with part 2. And if you guys have any subjects that you want us to talk about, hit us up and we'll try to do it. So
if it's a video you want us to watch, please make it a really interesting video that would require a lot of analysis. So don't make us do a video about the origins of penguins or like squirrels.
That could be interesting.
Nah, because I'm on beef with penguins who claim to be birds. No, wait a
claim to be birds.
But my thing about it is, yeah, man, like, if it's a video, please make it a video that is interesting, that requires like a lot of analysis. And now when I said, don't say, oh, watch Hitler Youth or something, or the story behind the Mein Kampf. Okay, just chill, and no pornography. So yeah.
Peace, guys.